welcome to Next Big Future. We have Randy Kirk here. So we talk about huge developments with Grok 4, the best AI model, and how that hugely impactful that is. Do you have anything to say about that before you get going there, Randy?
I have been listening to all the regular characters, Peter Diamandis, and to the what do you call it, B2Q guys,
Hmm.
Brad Gerstner and
Yep.
Bill Gurley, and everybody is just absolutely flabbergasted by what happened on was that Wednesday night or
Wednesday, yes, Wednesday.
Wednesday night? I mean, this is mind-boggling, a mind-boggling breakthrough, and
Yeah,
yet I was laughing the other day. It got zero coverage on CNBC. Not a word, not a paragraph on
yeah,
CNBC. It's like, what in the world? How could they not cover the story? But anyway,
yeah.
for those who care,
Hmm.
it is a massive story, and
My,
I'm glad to be here to go through it with you because
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it could be the most important story, again, these things happen so fast, but it could be the most important story ever. So Grok 4 is the best AI, and that matters for Tesla, it matters for Robotaxi, it matters for the world, because it's a huge step towards super intelligence, which we're going to be writing a book about.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's the announcement. There you go.
yeah,
We are
yeah.
announcing right here, right
Mm,
now.
mm,
Brian and I and maybe 10 others are
mm,
going to get together and write a book on super intelligence, and
mm.
with that, we're hoping to get it out maybe in August or so.
Right. So one, Grok 4 is better for FSD. There was a patent that came out that Tesla is involved in about how um, AI can be used to collect data, to prove simulation. Grok 4 is great for physics-based simulations, which will have evidence beyond the fact that Elon said it was. Um, and refine the neural networks with great simulation means more data uh, for Tesla. We have 6 billion miles of driving data. With AI, maybe you can increase that by 100, 1,000 times, which would be huge for performance and hugely impactful, as everyone knows that listening here, that the better the FSD is, the better the robotaxi is, the more value there is for Tesla.
Yeah,
So
so
we want,
yeah, so
go
I've been
ahead.
a little I've been a little confused. I recognize that some of this, and maybe you're going to talk about it more, but so how do you incorporate the what do you want to call it, the real world data that we're doing down at Cortex with the digital data that we're doing up at Colossus? How does that
Mm.
get combined in order to optimize or to make the speed with which we can improve the robotaxi thing faster?
So there are 8 cameras or so, I think, on the FSD system,
Mhm.
and they already do simulations where they project and say, "What will I, if I keep driving down this road, what will my camera see?" So it's going, you know, like a frame a second, so like 1/30th of a second, projecting forward frame by frame what's going to happen in the world to these cameras. So it's using, what it knows about the roads, the traffic, the physics to project forward on that. So they can use that to determine how should I make the decision about this driving situation by predicting forward what's going to happen in terms of what I expect to see on that. And then they can do that with information they already have, where they can say, okay, I know what this car does going forward, but I'm going to have it start at a certain point and then anticipate what's going to happen with it, and then mix that in with other situations and that kind of stuff. So that's some aspect of what it is. Um, and then it's also about predicting what different choices will occur with different users and that kind of stuff. So, and there's a lot of sameness to driving situations where, everyone who does driving down the highway knows that most of the time it's the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
But the edge cases of sometimes something crazy happens, There's a big multi-car accident. 3 fire trucks show up. It's things. The unusual situations are what they need to get a lot of information for,
Mhm.
and then being able to make variations upon that and say, okay, this weird situation happened, but it could have happened slightly differently if a few different choices were made, different positions were occurring. You can get that variation to get you know one weird situation looking like 1,000 different weird situations
Okay.
because you just shift. Um, you know, if a thousandth of a second later something was happening, move things by a few centimeters and then keep
Right.
moving those things to get the things that are different.
Okay.
Um, so the proof of PhD level capabilities with the physics and the math of that, there was a person X, Louis Batalla, who is a PhD person who wrote a PhD paper, his dissertation about the sun's effects on cosmic rays, and what you expect to see on your sensor in the International Space Station. That was his PhD thesis. And then he's continued to work in physics and math, but he also is doing a startup thing. So he is definitely a fully qualified PhD person in physics and math. He used Grok 4 to calculate Starship's Earth to Mars orbits, and he says it nailed it on the first try.
Wow.
So he would be able to know,
Yeah.
did it get it right? And
Yeah.
he said, yes, it did. Here's more about him. He's also founder of something called Fermath Library, a platform to annotate and talk about and explain academic papers. So he's looking at the work of other PhDs, other
Oh,
doctoral things, and he's looking at that all the time. So it's not just he did his PhD once, he's deeply involved in academic research. His favorite paper is the Nobel Prize winning Feynman's paper on the derivation of Schrodinger's equation.
mm,
So doctoral level physicists are very impressed with Grok 4.
right.
Um, Not just Grok 4, but DeepMind also revealed that over 3 years they were working on a Navier-Stokes, that's this engineering physics um, problem, it's a known theory, but then there was $1 million problem, something unsolved or some aspect of improving it, and a team working with DeepMind and the AI was able to solve that problem. So it's the teams of our best researchers working with AIs, moving advances faster than we would have otherwise.
Okay.
Another example is a person used Grok 4 to make a really great 3D simulation of the Earth, Moon, and satellites. So cloud layer, sunlighting, Earth and Moon rotation, movement of satellites, and then it was able to generate that detail of simulation. So the physics of it is just like 2 days into the release of this, we're making these 3D models of the Earth and everything around it, which just show the power and capability of these systems. Um, Grok for Voice demonstrated in the demo, this coming week, and integrated in with the Tesla cars. That will make so we have the software, the physics making better, FSD better, Robotaxi, but the user experience also be better. Talking with it instead of searching for the right button, going through menus to find things, or working with the steering wheel. You have the optionality of a highly effective voice conversation with going beyond things like Alexa and Siri to do that. And you get passenger control without a steering wheel. So someone could be in the passenger seat of a robotaxi and give instructions just like you're giving instructions to a cab driver.
Yeah.
And then we
So,
have,
so,
go ahead.
so Brian, I think that I don't want to rush past that idea that the
Mhm,
user experience, I mean, we have a subset of individuals who still like buttons,
mhm,
Then we have a subset of people that like the UI in the Tesla and in other modern cars, but find
mhm,
them confusing, just like my own Apple laptop, which I've been using the same, Apple system for years and years and years. I still find that there's times when I have trouble navigating. Everybody does. And so if all of a sudden, not only on your Tesla, but on your computer, all of a
Mhm.
sudden you start having voice commands for
Right.
all navigation. That is
Right.
going to just be a complete game changer.
Yes, yes, it will be. And we'll have to learn how to be precise enough with what we're asking for, where we need to be. But we'll also need to open it up is like um, have that conversation where we get the request correct. So it's like, I'm asking for this, and then they'll say, here's some options around what you're
Right.
saying. And
Right.
so it needs to not just do something and just assume all the time. It may need to say, just like you're talking to someone and giving them
Sure.
instructions. They can come
Yes.
back and say, what do you mean by that? Do you mean this or this?
Right.
The systems will also do that for you.
But I would also assume that Grok will be far better at interpreting my question than the system that we have now, where you
Right.
pretty much have to say exactly what the prompt is in order to get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
Grok will, if I want to say, increase the speed by 10 miles per hour, I don't have to say it that way. I maybe say, can you up the speed by 10, or we're going too slow. Can we go 10 miles higher? It could be using a lot of different words, synonyms, etc. I think Grok would be able to interpret much better.
Right. And then push back saying, okay, not in a safe or legal way or,
Right, right,
and
right.
not just do things just because it is asked. It'll stay within um, reasonable safety constraints. And I understand you want to get there X minutes faster. Let me see the best way to do that. So it could,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
I've said for a
But,
long time that I'm hoping that you can have Grok be snarky.
mhm.
So,
Right. So let me see here. Okay, so the other thing that we have is the expansion of the um, Robotaxi network. We know it's expanding in Austin. Could expand to other places in Texas. It has authorization to do that. They're talking about going to California. Elon talked about that in a month or two, which could be, taken literally, it'd be August 10th to or 9th to September 9th. But these things aren't necessarily that precise. It's
right.
based on regulatory approval, applied in Arizona for Phoenix. They're hiring people to collect data in all these locations as well as Florida. This is a positive thing. Um, when does it impact the share price and the revenue for that? I think definitely next year it will, because we're already looking at, possibly getting it to, 1 million cars or 2 million cars to get the Robotaxi expanded out to that. Um, but it could have significant impact in 2025 because things are speeding up because you have the best AI and all those simulation other things could go faster and better. The processes of how we're working could get better. And then the user experience could get to the point where it's increasing sales. Um, and those, revenue and the profits and then share price will follow along with that. And then it could also help processes to help us get to new car models faster. And then we could sell more cars because of the improved uh, Rockford experience. But not to undersell the fact that it's the best AI system.
Right.
OpenAI had a valuation of $300 billion or so from having the best, GPT-4, GPT-o3 models.
Mhm.
And now the Grok 4 model seems to be beating it on the ranking. It's beating the Gemini 2.5. So once you get it out there to more people and are able to use it, then this will be um, super duper valuable. The case could be made that once it's fully integrated in with the cars and with X and with X with payments, a $500 billion valuation for XAI is not unreasonable, late this year, and then $1 trillion or more next year.
Well, and he pointed to a number of additional revenue streams, which I don't think anybody else is, at this point at least, is going to be able to compete with. So he talked about the gaming world, which is larger than television streaming.
Right.
And said that Grok will be able to understand the games when it watches them or participates in them, be able to judge them for whether they're fun or not, and then also be able to create games
Mhm.
from the ground up, and believes that the first games made by Grok, a full game that's, merchandisable, will be available by the end of next year or so. Maybe smaller, less, we've seen some people already putting up some games that are just, really short, easy kinds of, Pong type games. Uh,
Mhm.
but there's a huge potential revenue stream there from people using it to create games, and then possibly there would be, and then movies. The same thing with movies. If you can do it
Mhm.
with games, you can do it with movies. You can understand movies. Gauge whether or not they are fun.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then he talked about being able to do a full-length movie with just a textual prompt by the end of next year. So
Mhm.
these are potential revenue streams to xAI on that side. And then on the other side, talked about enterprise level
Mhm.
products. So
Mhm.
apparently their enterprise team is already outselling enterprise solutions to companies. And then over the next 2 months, they're going to be adding a whole bunch of tools to Grok so that
Mhm.
the enterprise side will be able to utilize these tools.
And we know that the simulations that we just talked about, those can be applied to various kinds of games. You can have a space game with orbital mechanics. You can have first-person shooters or something like that, where you're roaming around the Earth and doing things. So having great simulations can make for great games. Oftentimes, we would always use a particular video game platform base code for the physics of the video game.
Right.
And then here they can get even better physics and make variations upon it for all kinds of games. So it gives them the capability to make really engaging, realistic games that also can feed into simulations for business, simulations for military, for all those kind of things. So it's a wide range, and they will have a captive audience if you have robotaxis for 10 million owners or for a billion passengers
Right.
who are in a car and they have some time and they may want to be entertained with a game or video or anything like that. So, and then if they get more and more access to phones, direct to cell phone communications from SpaceX and Starlink, again, they will have a way to further engage people and head toward a billion people on X with X video, X games. Again, it's something where the more engaging you can make all of your games and videos and content, then the more revenue it is. And they have the distribution platform,
Right.
multiple distribution platforms to get there.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I've heard some talk that potentially your app for the Robotaxi could be literally on X, that you wouldn't need to go to a separate app, but rather you would be able to call your car directly from the X platform. So
Mhm.
all kinds of crazy possibilities. I'm sure that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what's out there and what's possible. Of course, I was very intrigued by their vending machine situation where they did a simulated vending machine company, putting up vending machines and then, refilling them and collecting the coins, whatever the typical vending machine business. And they were able to max optimize the ability to earn money out of those vending machines much greater than the company that's in the business
Yeah,
was.
they doubled the best other option, went from like $2,000 to $4,000. I'm not sure whether per month or per week or
Sure,
whatever it
sure,
was.
sure.
Yeah, so it's and they said yeah, just needed um 1 million vending machines, then they'd have like $4 billion.
Right. So I was when they were talking about that, I was pretty glad that I'm no longer in the business consulting game,
Mhm.
because it would seem like that would no longer be a great business to be in. But I've been talking about this all day. People, if you haven't seen it already, I'll put the card up later. But Phil Beisel and I just did a show at 5 o'clock, which you can go back and take a look at. I'll put the card. And we also talked about some of the amazing ways that this is going to help Tesla, over and above the fact that it's going to make the robotaxi safer, faster.
Mhm.
over and above the way that it may be able to use those vending machine simulations as for robotaxi simulations in order to know where to go next and how far to expand the fleet, what to charge, etc. All those kind of things are going to be part of what this product can do. But also just taking the company as a whole and be able to do things like making predictions and simulations of anything from new vehicle designs to specific designs within a product of some aspect of. Elon mentioned metallurgy or material science, that he was able to ask questions already that were not in the science books, we're not in the material science textbooks, and got great answers. So
Right. So that becomes the even bigger thing. So yes, we can make 10 times more money with Robotaxi. Yes, we can make another 10 times more money with human and bot. But if you have new alloys like you're using for SpaceX, if you can potentially get, cars and rockets that are, you know, 2 times lighter, 3 times lighter, but just as strong. And then that means the performance just goes crazy. The efficiency of your batteries can double or triple. You can head towards physical limits of that, which can potentially be 10 times better batteries. So those kinds of insane improvements, if you accelerate them, means that I can have a car with a battery that's 10 times lighter. The metal in the car could be half as much. And that means the range would go up to like 5,000 miles. It'd just be like, the level of performance, like for the Tesla Semi, instead of 1.55 kilowatt hours, which is, 30% better than others per mile, maybe you can get to, zero point 0.5
right.
kilowatt hours for a truck that was, more efficient and lighter, more aerodynamic, et cetera. Going towards physical limits lets you get to um, vastly a huge transformation, as much as going from, horse-drawn carriages or steamships or sail ships to the next capability. So the pace of a science fiction world.
Yeah, so somebody was suggesting on X today that possibly this um, gas plant that Elon purchased to bring over to Memphis because he needs the additional power from to run the Colossus. Somebody suggested today that potentially he used Grok to find it. And
Right.
I can imagine, I know, I've been in the situation. You're faced with a product, let's say, that breaks down. I had a situation where some of my equipment was stolen. And so I was unable to produce for a few days because my equipment was stolen. Well, I had to find a new vendor, find somebody to make the tool to replace the tool that I had, find somebody to, so there's all these things that I needed to do. Well, I had like 4 or 5 staff members all over the internet, trying to find people, getting on the phone, trying to find them. Well, if I had Grok 4 and I said, okay, find every single extrusion company in the Western region who can
Mhm.
do small extrusions, I would have had that information like immediately. And then maybe even find out, maybe there would have been information about how busy they are or, how much capability they have, et cetera. So this may be how he found that power resource.
I
To
definitely think that's the case because Dylan Patel of Semi-Analysis, he had a team of like 20 or 30 people who analyzed the entire semiconductor industry, analyzed all the industry, analyzed the supply chain. And he said that they use AI to process all of the vast amounts of information in order to get deeper insights. So they will look at all of the um, air pollution filings, all the local permit filings in order to determine where is a new AI data center going up, where are places they could go up, where are the energy
right,
supply things coming from. So they're analyzing the supply chain of energy parts and all that in order to analyze. So of course, XAI, Tesla are doing the same thing. Other companies are doing the same work to determine where are these turbines, and digging down to details and pouring in a bunch of information sources to and uncovering the information sources that they can get at to have this deeper analysis.
Yeah, so I think what I'm trying to get across, and maybe you're also trying to get across to everybody that's listening, you've already most of you who are listening to this channel, you're listening, or you whether you're listening to Brian's channel or my channel, you're probably listening at least partially because you already own stock in Tesla. You're thinking about owning more stock in Tesla. You're a big fan of Elon Musk. You're a big fan of Tesla. I think what we're trying to say is Tesla just um, became a super company.
Right.
They're going to have capabilities. It'd be kind of like, let's say in 1985, you were the only company that had Excel spreadsheets.
Mhm.
And none of your competition had Excel or
Right.
Word documents or email.
Right.
You were the only one. You
Yeah.
know, you had these gigantic advantages in terms of productivity,
Mhm.
gigantic advantages in terms of being able to communicate, gigantic advantages in terms of your ability to analyze and project. And these, I would say, are even bigger than if you had had email, Word, and Excel, and nobody else did. I think we're talking even more so, even a greater advantage.
Right. It's also like instead of being, some rudimentary manager of a financial portfolio, that you get the mathematical hedge fund capability. Like the mathematical hedge funds gotten, like 30% per year returns because they were able to analyze the market in that more data advantage way. So you have data advantages, process advantages, and Elon drives these things into his companies faster.
Right.
So that he leverages, he puts it into his factories. He's taking the um, an analysis of things and putting the tools to his people. He said in the call that he was going to have the thing call the the best tools. So it'll be seamless. So he has the best simulation tools in Tesla, in SpaceX, and he's going to have the AI call those tools because they will then improve it and do that. So it will become part of the team seamlessly. So then it will know instead of like I must prompt you with context, put in a book or two of my um, um, documents and tracking of the company to like it's locked in, it's wired in directly to everything, and then from there to suppliers because he has teams going to suppliers. So driving that in where it's the tip of a spear of a fully AI enabled company. They talk about AI native. So taking something that's at scale
Yeah.
and then going to AI native. Because he'll go first principles about how to use it. So the this fundamentally transforms, and they're willing to reinvent themselves. That's one of the things is that unlike the other companies in manufacturing other things, where
Yeah.
things stay the same for years, they already are making a
Right.
thousand changes every week.
Right.
So now they can make those thousand changes AI speed. The number of changes could go up 10 times. The effectiveness of those changes could increase. So they were already the fastest, already the most innovative, already the most adaptable, and now they're, as they say, supercharging themselves with AI capability,
And they have the earliest access to it.
earliest access to it.
They're
Right.
getting, I'm sure they're probably already working, potentially they're already working on Grok 5.
Right.
Literally using Grok 5.
Well, that multi-year advantage of moving a um, power plant, a gigawatt, two
Right.
gigawatts,
Right.
to get to a million chips, installing it faster, doing it in what they said 6 to 9 months, 2 months ago. So
Yeah.
now perhaps 4 to 7 months before they will have
A
a
million.
million GPUs of the latest kind, B200s, that will have 12 times the compute. So they'll go through multiple cycles of improvement by the time the others are still trying to match the 100,000 H100 GPUs of Grok 3.
Hmm.
The most compute of any other non-XAI model is half of that capability. So OpenAI did GPT-4 with half the compute of Grok 3, and they just released it a month ago. And
Right.
now um, XA has gone up 4 to 10 times in capability, and is about to make another 12x increase in capability. So they're moving faster and faster, which you can't catch up if they're, you know, if you're going 100 miles per hour, they're going 200 and they go to 400. You will not catch up if they're constantly accelerating the rate of improvement.
So if you haven't, if you don't believe Brian and me, then you also have heard from Jensen Huang multiple times talking about what Tesla's doing, what Elon's doing. But then to add to that, Sundar Pichai said today, impressive progress, referring to
Right.
what happened on a Wednesday night.
And Sundar is ahead of Google.
I'm
Right.
sorry, I thought, that's true. Maybe people don't know his name as much as they know Jensen's name. Because Jensen's got one of those, you only need to know the one name. You just say Jensen, and
Right.
they know what you're talking about.
But by the way, for the stock investment, like, Tesla's kind of going trending sideways for a couple of years, something like that. So Nvidia hit their 4 trillion, probably hit 10 trillion in 2 to 3 years. The other companies that are moving huge are Oracle, who's Larry Ellison is Elon's buddy, been on the board of Tesla, heading towards $1 trillion of valuation. Dell is also moving. He was on the B2G podcast
Yep,
talking about
very
that.
interesting.
Yeah, and he's worth $125 billion. And it's all the ones who are building all the AI data centers or being involved in the chips and components. And then soon the implementers of that will be racing ahead. So it's not just Elon, but the whole, super AI world is coming out. And the fact that more compute made a far better AI is very positive because we will continue to increase the power of the compute and the transformation of getting to, far better than humans in all things is already kind of here, but it's just going to get even more powerful and integrated into everything, which, will take a book to
Right, to explain,
to
which is why
explain.
we're going to do it.
Right, right.
All right. So listen, on another subject, Tesla Roddy is reporting that PepsiCo added 18 stall charging sites in Charlotte for Tesla semi trucks. The plans also note the faster charging speeds for the charger, which can charge the Class 8 semis at speeds of over 1 megawatt. Tesla says that these speeds can charge the semi back to roughly 70% in around 30 minutes. The
Mhm.
company has continued to expand the fleet, meaning Pepsi, recently taking delivery of an additional 50 units in California. That means they're up around 86 units now, according to statements from semi-senior manager Dan Priestley. Additionally, the company has similar mega chargers at its facilities in Modesto and Fresno. And Tesla also submitted plans for approval to build 12 new mega charging stalls in Los Angeles, California. Over the past couple of years, Tesla has been delivering the electric Class 8 units to a number of other companies and pilot programs, and Priestley shared some results from PepsiCo's initial semi test last year. Notably, the executive spoke with a handful of PepsiCo workers who loved the product, of course. Elon says, oh, okay, that's it. That was that story. So, of course,
Mm.
the semi trucks, you are the number one expert on the semi situation outside of the Tesla people themselves. And so, what did you think about this?
I think the rollout is getting up to speed. That getting the mass production of vehicles latter half of this year looks good to be on track, and they're making substantial improvements to efficiency, to charging, and it's going to be an even better product. And combined with robotaxi, robotrucking, that's the key thing that will make it, 4 to 5 times better and totally world changing is the fact that you have robo trucking. But the underlying technology of it, the efficiency of the trucks, the efficiency of the charging, and getting those charging rolled out, because you need to have the charging rolled out is a key aspect to it. Because 20% of all energy, 20% of oil and gas goes to fueling trucks.
Trucks.
So that's a lot of electricity generation you have to have. It's a huge amount of lift in order to get to the fully um, deployed world
Right,
of
right.
yeah.
So then the last story that I have on Tesla today, you might have more. Elon says that the term LLM is outdated. So we need a new term. And I suggested, well, he said, it should just be model. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, model, that's boring. So I
Mhm.
suggested maybe it should be supermodel.
Yeah. The problem is that's a term well used for other things, and yeah, but
Anyway, anyway,
yeah.
so then Andre Karpathy, he said it should be auto-regressive transformers, but nobody's going to be able to say that. So
Mhm.
maybe that could be shortened to AT. So I
Mhm.
don't think AT is being used for anything right now. So we
Mhm.
maybe start calling it AT. And then the Grok said that some people are starting to call it frontier models.
Mhm.
It's hard to remember, but it might work. So frontier
Mhm.
models might be another one. So,
Mhm.
and to your earlier point, though, if you shorten that to FM, I think that FM's already taken, so we can't use that.
Right.
So
Um, yes. I'm not sure. Like the large language model became from language. So the multimodal thing. So we've somewhat gone to like M&Ms or something like that. Like multimodal models, something like that. Instead of because not just language, it's video, it's voice, etc. So yeah, so I'll have to think about it. I had not come up with a new name, and if Elon didn't suggest it, like his team had been working on it for a while, if they had some name for it,
yeah,
then
yeah.
they just come up with it and just start using it. Like drive it forward. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the general economy. Nobody, again, reported on this. I mean, yes, that it's not as true. CNBC did report this today when it first came out. And then I looked for it later. They'd already taken the story down. But to me, is anybody paying attention to the fact that the Trump administration had the first June budget surplus since 2017, coming in with a $27 billion surplus and expected this and beat the streets number by 68.5 billion?
Wow, very impressive.
Yeah,
So
very.
that was because of tariffs or some other kind of
Partially,
mechanism.
partially because of tariffs. So tariffs came in at, I think, 27 billion, which was up from 22 billion last month. So that's now getting over the 300 billion that Bessent says he wants to hit. But it wasn't just tariffs; it was also the fact that they beat on expenses also. So the monthly outlays went down
Mhm.
by 35 billion or something. So it was a good number. Every aspect of it was a great number. It says
Mhm.
this brought the fiscal year to date deficit to 1.34 trillion, up 5% from last year, except there is a calendar adjustment that you have to make. And if you take that calendar adjustment into a date, we're actually going to be down at this point by 1% compared to last year, with
Mhm.
3 months left to go in the calendar year. This is really the first month. I mean, they talk about 6 months. It's not Trump's economy until the 6 month. This is kind of the 6 month.
Mhm.
So this is Trump's economy, and he's got a surplus the very first month. I think that's really good news. But I wonder if
Right.
I'm surprised that Elon didn't say anything about it. He should have said, "Congratulations,
Right.
POTUS." You know,
Right.
this is great.
Yeah, it is very good news to see it continue, but it doesn't have the impact of the new bill
Right.
because so that will be a factor. But Dave um, Freeberg from All In Podcast says that they will solidify some of the gains by doing impoundment of the savings that they will have, and there's other steps that they will take in order to further improve the financial situation. So, it's um
They laid off like 2,000 State Department employees today,
mhm, right.
um, which they're now able to do. which they weren't able to do because that lawsuit. And now that
Mhm.
the lawsuit's gone, so they laid off 2,000. I think another couple of departments laid off today also. So we
Yeah.
should now start to see some of that starting to come into these numbers as well. So as much as I appreciate that Elon was mad and not happy that he didn't get what he wanted with regard to the big beautiful bill, I
Mhm.
just hope that if he sees that the numbers are really getting good, that if we have more surpluses, or at least we don't have the deficit over 3% of GDP, that maybe he'll recognize that it was okay, that Bessent knew what he was doing.
That being said, there was the theory that if he starts a third party, that all he needs to do is get a hold of about, say, 30 seats in the House of Representatives,
Right.
and then he's the swing can capture the swing vote for that by making sure Democrats and Republicans do not get majorities. And if you have this kind of like rough balance between the two groups, if you're able to get 20 or 30 seats, then neither side gets to a majority thing, and then you're the minority party that they must deal with. And it's not that expensive to uh, put money into these smaller house districts, and you can pick and choose. There was a video by a Tesla contributor, Joe Blochte, who makes that case that $5 million per race, more than the $2 million you normally spend, and then you can gain control. So having control that way would mean that you would have a mini party that could be more fiscally responsible, push more of the things that you want. So it's not just Elon having an argument with the Republican Party. It's just that he may have seen that he can just take control.
So we've had examples of this in the past, but probably the best one was during Eisenhower, Kennedy, and LBJ. We had the Blue Dog Democrats. So I
Right.
don't know how many there were, but I want to say it might have been on the order of 25 or 30 who voted as a group. And there's been other blocks that have voted in the past, but they were probably the most effective. So I could see this as something that could be done as the American Party, or it could just be done as the Elon, the
Yeah.
Elon, the Red Dog the Red Dog Republicans or something, uh,
Right.
that would be voting as a block. So, in any case, certainly I'm all for more and more and more fiscal responsibility. As much as Bessent only wants to get down to a deficit of 3% of GDP, I'd love to see the deficit eliminated and start paying off the debt.
Right.
I also just I want to say this once, I'll probably never say it again. I've seen some extremely good arguments for not paying off the debt.
Mm.
Now,
Right.
you may want to pay it down. It may be too big, too high, but
Mm.
the having a debt gives you certain capabilities that you, for instance, American citizens in particular, but people from all around the world invest in those treasuries
Mhm.
so as a safe haven. And,
Right.
and it may be that it would be a very good idea to keep a certain amount of that debt going.
Yeah. In any case, I don't think it's a simple thing as, this is good, this is bad, or that it would be done in a way that, it's just going to be harmful to Republicans or Trump or something like that. It's, the decisions will be made more dynamically. It'll be, potentially, a stable triangle situation.
Right, right, right. So, any other thoughts? Any other stuff that you saw on Tesla today? That was all that I saw that was new. Excuse me.
Um, just we're trading near an inflection point, 313, just below it. So it could, if it can push through on Monday, if the expansion of the Austin Robotaxi, goes really well, that could be sufficient stimulus to push us upward. More things with Grok 4. I think the AI related um, catalysts could increase, and that would be something that could become the story. Because between now and say middle of next year, Tesla and xAI will become the fully AI company. You'll have a lot of robotaxi, you'll have 1,000 Tesla bots deployed, you'll have all those things happen. And now, Grok 5 or something like that, it'll be clearly AI will be everything. So now from here to there, it'll be increasing, and the cadence of those AI announcements will become could become the driving factor. I think will become the driving factor.
Right,
Yes,
right.
how fast does it happen? How much does it happen uh, going forward? Like a super fast rollout, to 2,000 cars, 10,000 cars for Robotaxi in 3 states, um, 5 cities. That would be a massive transformation and far more than most people are expecting.
So we've got it was a very, very light week in terms of economic news. The only thing so that meant that the tariff situation dominated all week. But
Mhm.
even with the tariff thing dominating all week, the VIX is still sitting around 16. So as
Mhm.
much as we saw silver jump up and gold jump up and copper, of course, jump up because copper has a 50% tariff, at least threatened. We don't know if it's going to go through or not. Did you do any deep dive? I did a little bit of a deep dive with Grok on copper.
No, I did not.
My understanding is there's plenty of copper in the United States,
Mhm.
no problem
Right.
increasing dramatically the amount that we're producing in the United States. Now it might take a year or two or whatever, but the mines exist.
Mhm.
The known copper reserves exist. So it
Mhm.
really isn't an issue of getting up to speed on that.
And the disruptions have not hit the basic economy. Like it's, unemployment has not shot up, inflation has not shot up. All these things, the economy seems to be doing fine as these things happen. And they should do even better once we get to the settled state of having the proper deals, getting the government's not functioning quite as well as it should in terms of like certain areas where they laid off. There's the people who are there are not uh, doing as much work or being productive because oh, I'm so worried about my job, other things. Validly so, right? But it's something where we need to get to a stabilized situation where, okay, we've renegotiated everything. This is what's going to be. The government has downsized, and we're doing things effectively, and getting everything transitioned over and smoothly running some 6 to 9 months before the midterm elections will be
Yes.
key. Obviously, that's what they want to do. So these next 6 months should really determine, um, you know, how that plays out. Because they want to get to people not thinking, oh, it's chaotic, it's whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this, and again, this is not anything that Trump can control or impact, other than just to take advantage of it as it's occurring, but to have this dynamic presidency, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, he's creating a lot of dynamism. Anyway,
Mhm.
there's a lot going on, a lot of change, a lot of stuff that is having big impacts both domestically and internationally. So you have all these changes taking place and all the additional changes that are promised. I mean, if all he did was completely close the border, that would be a massive change because instead of 2 to 3 million people a year coming in, you got 1 million people a year going out. That's a big change in the way that the economy is being impacted by that particular aspect. So all these changes, but then, which he doesn't have any control of, what we just talked about is AI and this dramatic announcement on Wednesday. Um, Everybody that I've listened to recently thinks that this is going to be bigger by a lot than the internet.
Yes. Yeah.
That that's this and that's the sense I get as well. I mean, I
Mhm.
lived through the internet. I was already in my 40s or something during the 90s. And so, it was a big deal for me. We literally, my partner and I, we had a see at that time, yeah, we probably had about 100 employees at that time. So as the internet was coming closer, and the actual, the ability to have a website, we
Mhm.
were literally waiting for the announcement.
Right.
Yeah, and as soon as they announced that we could have a website, we're like, okay, how do you get your name and blah, blah, blah. And we had a website in no time at all. So this was a very big deal. All that change in the 90s was a very big deal, and it stimulated like 5 to 6% annual, some years that much productivity increase, a GDP increasing at 3, 4, 5%. And people are saying, no, this is bigger. They feel it, they sense it, they see it.
Well, I think it has the potential to be more change than 100 or 200 years of the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
That's the level of change. And the level of change that we're talking about is, where the economy increased by 100 times. Where everyone was between $300 and $600 per person of per capita income, and then by the end of it, you have people at $30,000 to $100,000 per person, and economy going from 1 trillion to 100 trillion. But the other thing is the speed of trains and ships that increased by 7 times because
Mm,
you made highways and stuff. So you could take, weeks to go, from Florida to other places. The roads weren't good if you didn't have highways, right? And at the beginning of it, you didn't have um, engines. You had, horse-drawn carriage, you had wind, right? So, and then the costs were dropping by 10 times. So that level of cost dropping by 10 times, speed increasing by 3, 4, 5 times, the productivity increasing by 10 times. Those are the level of transformative change. But instead of happening over 100, 200 years, happens in 10 years,
right,
maybe happens in 5 years, right?
right.
And 2 centuries, in 10 years. So, 5 years of a century, another 5 years. And so, because if I'm totally changing things to get towards what is physically possible, materials that are that much better, 3 times more strength, half the weight, batteries 10 times better. The the products you can get from that would be huge. It's like, oh yeah, I can make a electric flying plane that's hypersonic and more fuel efficient than a 737. So I've increased speed by 10 times and all that. So the I can have the SpaceX Starship not lifting 100 or 200 tons, they could lift 500 tons, right? So by having orders of magnitude changes in what's, the capabilities of the devices is the, you know, the amount of change that happens in the next 10 years could be that shocking.
So when I was in high school, I was the only boy who took typing.
Mhm.
Okay. Now I did that because I wanted to be in the classroom with all girls. No, no, no. I truly believe that it was very, very important to take typing. I still believe it was the most important class that I took in high school because in 1964, when I took the typing class, um, it, people didn't realize, how important typing was going to be in the 70s, 80s, 90s, et cetera. So this today, and we talked a minute ago about knowing Excel. I can remember where we just, by the way, I'm repeating stuff that I said on with Phil Beisel a little while ago, because I'm going to keep repeating this, because this is maybe the most important thing that Brian and I will say tonight is I used to throw away applications for anybody that was going to work in the office if they didn't know Excel. It wasn't it, it wasn't even, it's kind of like 20 years before I would have thrown it away if they didn't know how to type. Now you
Mhm.
throw it away because they didn't know Excel. And then, 15 years ago, it'd be something, So right now, your kids, if you're under 60, or if you're planning to be employed for the next 20 years, I don't care what age you are, if you're planning to be employed even for the next 10 years, you have to become an expert on AI. You have to.
Mhm.
If you have kids that are in their 20s or 30s and they're not experts on AI, you need to talk to them. Have a
Mhm.
sit down. I don't like to try to tell my kids what to do. This is an exception. Everybody needs to know how to use AI. If you got kids that are in high school or college, they need to learn how to use AI. Now, the kids in grade school will be the easiest because it'll become natural for them, but it's critical. What do you say? What do you say?
That, and also you need to have it up level yourself so that you become an entrepreneur, an effective entrepreneur, effective, able to order your effective coding. You need to be able to know what to wish for from the genie. So
Yeah.
this is a genie that will be producing stuff. You need to have, As they said in Inception, you need to don't be afraid to dream bigger. So you need to be able to ask for it. Like I want to become my own boss. I want to run my own company. I want to make my own product. It's like working for someone else in most cases will become the wrong choice. And it's like being you know 200 years ago. I want to ask it how to become a better farmhand. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to be twice as productive in doing farm work. Wrong question. So you need to, think about how to get a business, how to do stuff, how to make a product, how to do things for other people. How can I help the most other people with something that I want to do?
Mhm.
Is starting to think about it that way. But we'll dive deep into those things about how to use it. But there are videos out there about how to use Grok 4 to make anything, coding, applications, apps. You need to, again, change what you're wishing for.
Okay, on the numbers, Brian,
Mhm.
I'm going to look again because I'm almost afraid to look anymore. I'm going to look once again today because I'm sure you know this. There was one particular commodity or whatever you're going to call it that went a little nuts. Bitcoin is now sitting at 117,684, up 4,288 after breaking
Mhm.
the all-time high a couple of days ago at 111. So people are saying it's going to go to a million, Brian.
Yeah, yeah. It'll go to a million. Just a question of when. Is it going to be next year? I think, 150,000, 200,000 this year is definitely possible. Um, yeah, it's moving along. Yeah. So if
So
people could look at MicroStrategy, it's a leverage play on
yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
yeah. That's
not
another good
not
thing.
not investment advice.
Not investment advice. Then we got bonds, which are just going, I don't know. I can't even figure them out anymore. So the bonds were up 7.1 basis points today and ended up at 4.41 again. The 10-year is almost 4.42. It's just crazy. It's just, I guess maybe if the CPI next week is right now, I know that this is not Sunday night where I do the Monday morning show. But if the CPI, right now they're thinking the CPI might come in a little hot. They're putting in some percent for tariffs. They're putting a little percent in for they think food prices might be up a little bit, although that's not what's happening on Trueflation. Trueflation is showing food prices down. So if maybe if there's a miss on the CPI, when I say a miss, it's lower than expected, maybe the bonds will finally relax.
I'm not sure about that, what's
Okay, all
going on
right.
there.
And then oil was up another $2.18, which is crazy. Maybe it's just the summer thing. There is not quite enough oil in the system right now, but we know that there's going to be. So be careful if you're investing in oil. I haven't put myself. The last time I put a sell on oil, it was at 70. I don't normally tell anybody what to do about oil, and it's not investment advice. It's Randy's like lifetime advice. But it was 77, and I said, no, sell, 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 sell. And it dropped like a rock to 65. So I got that one on the nose. But anyway, natural gas sitting okay. All right, it's at 335, which is normal. Gold, though, up 44 today, back up into 3370 range. Now, here's the big one. Besides Bitcoin, silver, $39, breaking its
Mhm.
all-time high, including the Hunt's effort to corner the market.
Mhm.
So $39.07,
Yep.
pretty wild. And copper, obviously, with the tariff news.
So,
So
so a lot of those commodity things, just because, the dollar is weakening relative to
yeah,
these commodities. So it's more kind of like those things, not strengthening, but the dollar, the real value of the dollar,
right.
dropping.
Yes, that is also obviously impactful on the commodities. You are 100% right. Okay, then that's all that I have
Yep.
right now. You got anything
That's
else?
it. That's
That's
it.
it. All right. Well,
Have a great weekend.
this is your show. So am I
Yes.
supposed to say it's
Yeah.
been great talking to you? Or I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Let's do it. Great talk, everyone. Yeah. And then, yeah, we'll follow up with more stuff on the super AIs. It's a huge deal.
It is.